Thank you very much for letting me speak today. I'll be talking about user experience and you, getting you excited about user experience. There you go. See, that's the quality of the jokes you're going to get. So for you who don't know, UX is the shorthand for user experience. I'll be using those interchangeably. All right, so I'll be answering 3 questions today. Why should y'all, quality experts, care about user experience? What is a user experience designer, and what do they do? So let's start off with the important question. Why should you care? So these are 2 websites, UNICEF and American Red Cross Australia. Very similar mission. I'm sure you're all familiar with them. Similar goals. And at this point, they were actually had the exact same campaign going on. Raise awareness about Syria and solicit donations. The only real difference during this time was that UNICEF invested in user experience design and the Australian Red Cross didn't. So a third-party usability research firm did a comparative analysis. How does usability affect the users and how they interact with these websites? And what they found was pretty extraordinary. When they asked user if they were able to find the information they're looking for, 38% more users were able to find the information on the UNICEF site than they were the Red Cross. 18% more were able to complete tasks, and these aren't complicated tasks. These are finding information about Syria, finding out where to donate, finding out how to donate, mission critical things for the organization, and almost 20% more were able to do it because of usability. And this also had an effect on user behavior. 10% more donated for the first time using the UNICEF site. And those that were originally planning on giving gave almost 10% more using the UNICEF site compared to 0. So you all may be thinking right now, that's awesome. I'm gonna go back to my organization or my group and say, hey, we should hire one of those people to, dizzy up our website. But I'm a quality expert. I may not ever interact with the website. What does this mean for me? But I'll answer my question with a question. Who has quality information on their internal intranet site at their organization? Maybe you have a SharePoint site that has quality documents on it. Well, congratulations and my condolences. You have a website and you're governed by the same principles and the same governance and user behavior that every other website has. You have 10 seconds. Within 10 seconds, the average user decides if they want to stay on that website and get their information from that or not. And after those 10 seconds, they're gone. 79% of users that do not decide that they want to stay on the website leave and never come back. And that's just as true for internal sites as external sites. They will go, they'll ask a friend how they do it, they'll find another way. And once people find a way of completing a task, no matter how onerous, no matter how much it frustrates them, they'll stick with that task. Usability research says that almost 0% of people will voluntarily find a better way of doing something or search for a better way once they found a method that gets them to the end. So the next 3 examples comes from the leader in usability research and the design, which is the Nielsen-Norman group. First, what they did was they did analysis of information-only websites. This is like, let's say, a website about quality, where you're just trying to relay information to your users. They found those that invested in usability had double the visitors and double the rate of usage of that website and the material on that. When they did a meta-analysis of all the companies reporting investing in usability in their intranet sites and their internal operations, they saw a 4-to-1 return on investment for every $1 million. They got, on average, if you're just middle of the road, got $4 million in return on investment. And one extreme case, let me see if I can get this, US Defense Department of Financing and Accountability Services, you can already see they're efficient, were able to save 200 staff years when it came for searching for information, completing tasks, and general efficiency. To give you some context, that was a fashion 200 years ago. It's a fashion today. I can do neither of these fashions, but that's 200 years. So now that we have the why, let's talk about what is user experience design. It's the combination of the design of things a process for a process like signing in, a product like a frozen brand electric toothbrush, or an entire environment, a dock on a bay. And how people experience that. Is there barriers to signing in? Is ELSA really correlated with better hygiene? Have we considered all the users for this environment? Is it a good corgi launcher? But usually when we hear user experience, it comes in context of that breakdown, where what the users are trying to do doesn't meet with what we originally designed it to do. Go to any campus and you'll see an example of this, where the university decided how people should get to where they need to go and how people actually get to where they need to go. So there's a lot of definitions about what is user experience design, and for me, it's to help the users achieve their desired outcome in a way that's best for them. So let's talk ketchup. If anyone remembers the bottle on the left, everyone had their own methodology of getting ketchup out of this thing. You hit the 57, you stab it with a knife, you turn around 3 times and spit. Whatever it was, once you were able to get some out, you got all of it out. You hardly ever see that design in restaurants anymore because user experience designers were able to design a better bottle. It's incredibly mobile, so even if you have a low mobility, you can still squeeze the bottle with your entire hand. Everything's at the bottom, like gravity intended, and it's a very cool, clean, smooth burst. So one element of user experience design is redesigning processes and products. The other is just organizing information. This is probably very relevant to all of you. On the left is a street in San Francisco. If you were to try to park there, would you feel okay with leaving your car there? I know I wouldn't. So the thing on the right is a user experience designer's reimagining of that information and presenting it in a way that's best for users. And you know, I feel like you'd feel pretty confident parking on a Sunday if you saw that sign on that. The next is sometimes it's examining processes that work for a lot of people or worked at one time and realizing it may not work anymore or does not work for all the users. Now, you may be thinking, well, why doesn't the kid just look up? I mean, everyone's doing it. Or to extrapolate that, why aren't the users of this one group just not doing like everyone else that are quite simply just following the process? And I'll answer my own question with a question. Why? If there is a better way to help people achieve the goal that's both the business goals and their goals, why should we force them? What's ever on that kid's phone is wildly more interesting than a blinking LED man 40 feet away. And if there's a better solution that we can bridge that gap between business goals and user goals, why not? And you know, this also has an added advantage. If someone's low of sight, something that's right below them is much easier to see than something 40 feet away. So now that I've talked about how we can't change user behavior, let's talk about changing user behavior. So who here has a recyclable bag at home? I know I do. Who is great at bringing those to the grocery store every single time? Yeah, absolutely not. So, oh yeah, see? And that makes a huge difference. So yeah, none of us really want to use plastic bags. And so what some cities started to do is introduce a 5-cent tax on every plastic bag you use. So in a 10-bag, almost $200 shopping spree, you're using 10 bags, 50 cents. That's 0.25% of all the like your entire bill. And that may not seem like a lot, or it may seem like a lot, but it had dramatic effects. The year after it was introduced in London, there was an 83% reduction in plastic bag usage. In DC, there was a 50% reduction, but an 82% reduction in plastic bags found in the Potomac the following year. So whether it's redesigning the system, clarifying information, adapting to changing user demands, or influencing behavior, it's all to help the user achieve their goals in a way that's best for them. So now that we know the why and the what, let's talk about how. So there's a myriad of different processes to enact user experience design. At the top left, you see Adobe's. Bottom left is Stanford's. The one on the right is some random one I found on the internet, just to illustrate that there are hundreds of different ways to achieve that. But for me, there's pretty much just 4 zones. It's understanding the user, defining the user experience, designing the user experience, and ensuring that it works for users. Let's talk understanding the user. So this comes from user research, user interviews, and persona creations. There's other things, but let's stick to these. Who here has said that they need to design a process for their entire staff? I know I've been told to make a website for the general public, everyone. So when we talk about everyone, we're talking about the average and trying to stake the average. This is average for Americans. Women, 42, white, non-Hispanic, married, didn't graduate college, lives in a city. If anyone knows who that is, that's Cindy Crawford. If you're creating a quality document or building a website for Cindy Crawford, you're probably not doing it for your average user. So how do we solve that? By just not going with the average? We do user research. This gets a lot of really important information for us. What problems are they trying to solve, not what we can provide for them? If you ask people, do you want this? Do you want this? Would this work for you? They'll say yes. I've created crazy websites because when I was early on, I was like, would you like this feature? 100% they say yes. Everyone loves features, especially when it's free. What challenges are unique to this user group? Do they have disabilities? They have financial, time, emotional strain. What is their state of mind trying to solve that problem? Someone trying to look for how to file their taxes on April 15th are in a much different mind state than those on January 1st and will be looking at different resources. And what's their ideal outcome? You knowing what their ideal outcome, once again, helps bridge that gap. So once you get that information, you can chunk the different users into personas. These are just kind of made up personifications of different type of users. They can be broken down by role, user goal, anything that kind of separates them out into distinguishable chunks that you can then interpret. This helps us in 3 ways. One, as a reference point. Cis white male, highly educated, working in RTP has a very unique and maybe not universalized mindset. So having just different people and different pictures can help you realize that your goals and your view may not fully reflect your users and their goals. It can also help identify hidden bias. According to the CDC, 1 in 4 Americans have some sort of disability. If you're watching my lecture, how many of you know that I'm just horribly dyslexic? That's why you're not seeing a lot of bullet points up on the screen. But you know, you would only find out that, and if you're trying to create a quality document or procedure that's just a wall of text, it's going to be very hard for me to understand that, interpret it, and get what you need for me to get out of that. It also acts as a referee. There are many different ways to solve a problem, and if you are trying to internally debate what's the best, having those personas that you can argue to, rather arguing your ideas, what's best for them, can really help your group solve a problem. So let's talk about defining a user experience, use case scenarios, user journeys and storyboards, and user task flows. So simply just creating little scenarios. What is your users trying to create? Who are the actors involved? And what are the basic steps in their operation? This kind of gives you some clarity as to what they're trying to do in some of the big pictures. Next, storyboarding and scenario work. Just starting to go through that process and have people, and having you visualize how they do it can really help you understand. And then of course, user flow. This is literally going through every single step of what they do and how they do it. And you can really start finding the little pit holes that happen. On the right, you'll see traditional parking meters. Very simple. And if anyone's parked in downtown, that's Durham's parking meters. Such a wonderful user experience that I spent an entire afternoon redesigning it, but that's the current process. It's a mess. Anyway, so this helps you align with users' expectations. If you saw that long list of things they have to do and you realize maybe that's not the best, most ideal way of doing it, you can quickly find those problems. And it prevents mission creep. Once you have a way of doing things, it is very easy to bat away people like, oh, let's have a social media campaign about it. Or, you know, let's add this feature or that feature. It really can say, well, you know, we have this process. Why do you think it would add to this or take away? Designing the user experience. This is where this more applies to digital products, but this can apply across, especially this first one for you, card sorting. If you have a large hub of information and you don't know how the users want to experience it, write down 25 to 50 different pages of it, the main point of that, put them on cards and give them to people and say, here, sort these into group, and you quickly discover how they want to find that information and how they're going to look for it. The next is just sketching and mock-ups. It can be very simple to all the way to very high fidelity. And then prototyping. That's really just putting this in front of people and saying this works. When it comes to processes of quality, start with a small group because costs are high. A problem found after something's been put in the field is 100 times more costly than before it was put out into the field. This allows for rapid iteration. You can try a whole bunch of different things with a whole bunch of different groups, see what works best. And it's a low-cost problem finder. You will quickly discover everything up until now is guesswork. It will help you identify what's wrong. And remember that mule. Once you put something wrong out into the field, you're kind of stuck with it for a long time, and it takes a lot of effort to move your users again. So let's talk about ensuring that it works. User log analysis, user surveys, usability testing. If you don't have analytics on your website, start now. Knowing how often people visit, what they're searching for, what they're finding. This is invaluable information to you. And it costs nothing, and you don't have to disturb anyone. Next is user surveys. This is very easy, quick way to go beyond that, what you see to what they're experiencing. Quality, what's the easy task, what's hard. Then, of course, get out of your cubicle and talk to people. Best way to understand what people are experiencing is to go talk to them. It helps us decide, is it works as designed, and what's next? I will put one caveat to this. If you're asking for feedback, make sure you have the time, the money, and the political will to enact that change. If you think not asking people is a problem, try asking them, getting their feedback, and ignoring it. That's the problem. So with that said, 3 answers, hopefully, I've been able to help you achieve. I care about usability. I know what a user experience designer does, and I know how they do it. So with that, thank you very much. That's my 20 minutes. Stephen Levin at rti.org, and if there's any time for questions. Thank you.